Actor Dax Shepard is well respected in Hollywood, but his journey wasn't always easy. Here are some things you may not know about Dax Shepard's tragic real-life story. As a child, Shepard didn't always have it easy. According to the Los Angeles Times, he once spoke about being molested when he was 7 years old, a series of incidents that he couldn't talk about for 12 years. Shepard revealed that it was a neighbor who was older than him, that the incident made him feel guilty, and that he found himself questioning his sexual identity. He blamed himself and believed that he somehow, quote, manifested the abuse because he must have been, in his words, secretly gay. He added that he battled these issues for more than a decade and felt that the incidents later added to his struggles as an adult. According to USA Today, Shepard was able to accept that what happened when he was a kid contributed to his battles with alcoholism and drug addiction many years later, as he tried to make sense of it all. Shepard's parents separated when he was fairly young. As he mentioned on the Tim Ferriss show, the actor saw his mom rebuild her life several times. She went through 3 divorces and was also subjected to physical abuse. Shepard said, "My first stepdad was physically abusive and beat her up in front of us, and it was gnarly." Shepard saw just how hard it was for his mom to go through life and face her mental health battles. She tried to take her own life twice. Still, Shepard admired his mother for the person she was. On why she endured abuse from one of her husbands, she told her son, "The shame of having failed twice prevented me from breaking up with my husband. I had just got divorced from your dad, and I didn't want to tell my parents." She added that this was a tough time for all of them, and she felt like they were let down by her behavior. If you or anyone you know is having suicidal thoughts, please call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. Shepard knew exactly what it was like to worry about money when he was a kid. As the actor explained in his interview on the Tim Ferriss show, his earlier experiences shaped his views on finances in a big way. His mom had to work a night shift janitorial job to keep her family going. Money was a big deal for the family, and it definitely rubbed off on him. Shepard said, "I'm obsessed with money, and I have great fear and financial insecurity, completely irrational." He added that for most of his life, he felt he needed to make a certain amount of money and hoped that hitting that goal would help him feel secure. But it didn't actually help him feel safe. Shepard knew he needed to find a way out. The only way to beat his fear was to look outside his comfort zone and do things that would have previously scared him. One of the things that helped him was learning to take risks and do what he felt like doing without stressing about finances. He said, "Now I'm lucky enough to only do stuff that I am excited to do. I don't actually have to think about the financial component." While Shepard has been happily married to actress Kristen Bell since 2013, he had a rough time before he met her. According to She Knows, actress Kate Hudson and Shepard dated for a short period in 2007, and the relationship was a messy affair, to say the least. They spoke about their history when Hudson appeared on Shepard's podcast, Armchair Expert. When the two were first introduced to each other, Hudson was married to someone else, and Shepard had a girlfriend. They couldn't help their mutual attraction to each other, though. Shepard told Hudson, "I wasn't plotting anything, but I certainly wanted your approval, and if you thought I was cute, all the better." They met again in Malibu the next year and ended up together for 3 months in a tumultuous relationship. Basically, when they weren't having a great time together, they were fighting. Shepard told her, "You and I had fights that I really hadn't had with people. We had some big old barn burners." Shepard also felt insecure in the relationship because he felt like Hudson was doing a lot better in the film industry than he was. Still, he felt his time with Hudson helped him learn a lot about what he should be doing in a relationship, especially in terms of communicating properly and making an effort. One of the toughest battles for Shepard was overcoming addiction. According to People magazine, the actor found it really difficult to stop taking drugs.
I just had a decade of shames, all kinds of deplorable behaviors while f***ed up.
He opened up on his podcast about how despite having been sober for years, he ended up relapsing in 2012 when he was in a really tough spot. His dad had been diagnosed with cancer, and Shepard ended up hurting himself in a motorcycle crash. The pain prompted him to ask for something to help him get through his bad days. He got some Vicodin pills from his sponsor on the condition that he would visit a doctor. But at one point, Sheppard found himself slipping when he took some of his stepfather's painkillers. Later, he would take painkillers as prescribed from his doctor, but he'd tweak the dosage and timing as desired. He said, "Maybe I don't want to take them at night because I can't sleep when I take them. So when I get my 2 at night, I don't actually eat them, and I keep them for tomorrow morning so I can make it the dose I want to be." Unfortunately, he relapsed again in 2020 after he went through both an ATV accident and a second motorcycle accident. He ended up buying pills on his own, and after feeling extreme guilt, he later decided to admit everything to his wife.
I had not gaslit people in 16 years, and I was gaslighting people.
In 2017, Sheppard shared how difficult it was for him and his family to lose his stepfather to cancer. According to the Huffington Post, the actor's stepfather was 62 when he ended up in the hospital battling cancer. Kristen Bell was pregnant and decided to fly down to Detroit, where Sheppard and his stepfather were. Sheppard's stepfather found solace in the fact that Bell was pregnant with his son's child. Sheppard wrote, "It was an amazing, incredible, perfectly timed surprise. She lifted her shirt up and he put his hand on her swollen stomach. He was smiling from ear to ear, sitting contently, unable to put together a sentence, but still capable of connecting to the new family member we were creating." For Sheppard, this is a memory that he'll never let go of. In fact, he explained how overwhelming things were because everything happened at once. He received news about his stepfather's cancer and Bell's pregnancy around the same time. That said, Sheppard feels indebted to Bell for giving his stepfather those priceless moments at the hospital when he was going through such a rough time, battling his illness and knowing that he wouldn't be around to see Sheppard's kid grow up. Like so many others in the entertainment industry, Sheppard isn't immune to rejection. The actor once spoke about being let go from the show Will and Grace. In an armchair expert conversation with Will and Grace star Sean Hayes, Sheppard got candid about what it was like to be fired from a show he was so excited to be a part of. Basically, things seemed great until it was time for the actor's table read, when things didn't quite pan out the way he expected them to. The show's producers changed their minds about casting Sheppard on the show, which understandably hurt him. He said, "Had it been any other thing with a bunch of strangers, I would have been like, oh, whatever. I was at a table read for 45 minutes, and then I got fired." But since he was familiar with many of the faces at the table read, his rejection was more embarrassing and much harder for him to accept. Sheppard has spoken about how he can be quite brutal to himself. As he explained in his conversation on the Tim Ferriss show, the actor still questions himself at times and seeks validation from others. For example, he believes that he could do a much better job with his podcast. He said, "I still give myself a C, but it used to be an E because I talk way too much. It's as if I met you at a bar and I want your approval. And I'm aware of that, and I'm trying to get your approval."
I was trying too hard at the beginning to get people to be sharing something we never heard.
Sheppard went on to say that he's been consciously working on letting his guests speak a lot more. But he says that it's also important for him to make guests feel comfortable and allow them to be vulnerable by being vulnerable himself, which makes them feel safer and more inclined to tell their stories. Sheppard's 2020 motorcycle accident didn't just hurt him physically. His morale suffered as well. According to Entertainment Weekly, the actor had to undergo surgery to recover. He said that it was his fault when he got carried away at a racetrack and braked too hard. He explained, "I was passing 6 guys on Sonoma Raceway on a motorcycle, and I was braking very, very hard. Hard enough that the back wheel was off the ground for a good 100 yards. I was totally to blame." Sheppard added that his confidence took a beating and that he was heavily scolded by track employees for his behavior. Sheppard, by the way, didn't let the accident stop him that day and continued to ride, only stopping when he couldn't bear the pain any longer. When he went to the ER the next day, he finally learned of the extent of his injuries. He said, "The final tally was 4 broken ribs, the clavicle is broken in 3 places, and I need surgery." While Sheppard has had many successful projects, he's also known what it's like to fail. At some of his lowest points, he couldn't help but wonder whether it was a better idea for him to step away from acting altogether. he told podcast host Tim Ferriss about going through a 3-year period of self-doubt where he felt he wasn't an actor, but rather a writer and a director. He reflected on what happened when his film Chips didn't pan out as expected, and consequently, Chips 2 would never see the light of day. Shepard recalled that he was confused about his next steps and explained, "I did not have that identity anymore, and they had already commissioned Chips 2. I was already beginning to write that, and I got very depressed for 3 or 4 months, maybe more." At that point, he was so depressed that he even considered stepping away from the industry and retiring, asking himself questions like whether he had enough savings to get by without feeling pressured to work. While it's fair to say that Shepard and Kristen Bell are a solid couple, things weren't always so smooth for them. In fact, when their relationship first began, they had to find ways to deal with their major differences instead of sweeping them under the rug. According to Insider, Bell had to learn to deal with a habit of non-confrontation that actually had the effect of making things worse. When they first started dating, she would escape confrontation during fights by simply walking away instead of talking to him. Bell reflected on her habit later, calling it toxic, and saying that she decided to change after Shepard told her about it. She explained, "We'd get in a fight, because we would fight a lot, and I'd yell something, then slam the bedroom door, then I'd slam the front door, then I'd get in my car, and then I'd skid out the driveway, and I would sit around the corner in my car, and it felt so good." She added that Shepard spoke to her directly about this issue 3 months after they started dating, stating that this was something he couldn't simply ignore, and that they needed better, more open communication. And look at them now. #relationship goals. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more grunge videos about your favorite stuff are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.